Wow, so I can't believe it. NVIDIA actually did it. Your GPU probably lost half of its value today. I don't care if you have a 4080 or AMD 7900 XTX. I really didn't think NVIDIA was going to price their GPUs this aggressively. I mean, listen, we've been listening to the rumors recently, right? And they went both ways. Some of them kind of got this right. Other rumors said they were going to be more expensive. It made sense for NVIDIA to make these GPUs more expensive because they're the super variant. But maybe this indicates that the gaming market and the economy in general is really not doing that great because they gave us basically what we would like. I mean, I can't find too much to complain about this pricing. And of course, remember to subscribe for GPU news. Makes me happy and helps the channel grow. Let's start right at the top. RTX 4080 Super, $999. Isn't that funny to say? NVIDIA's been whacking us over the head with, $1,200 3080 and then 4080 for a couple of years now. All of a sudden, they give in. They gave in to gamers. Gamers win, I guess. That should be probably the title of the video. It's, $12.99 to $9.99. I'm almost speechless. The 4080 Super, first of all, we know how it's going to perform, roughly. We can guess. It's going to be better than a 4080. I mean, it has Super in the name. So why wouldn't it be better than a 4080? Nobody expects it to be as good as a 4090, but they do expect it to be a little bit better than a 4080. And at $300 less, I think this is probably the new high-end GPU to beat. Now, this is the real high-end. The 4090 is a little bit out there. It's really expensive. It's hard to find now. Prices have been soaring over like $1,800. So effectively, it's almost twice the price of a 4080 Super for only, maybe a little more performance in gaming. It's not as big of a difference as it was previously. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows 10 Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. Now, of course, aside from some more CUDA cores, the 4080 Super is going to still have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but I don't really think people care at $999 as long as it's performing a lot better than something like the previous 4080, which is, I think, going to be discontinued now. If you have a 4080, imagine how much that GPU just went down in value. Some of the 4080s went as high as like $1,500 for the Asus Strix. Now, if the 4080 Super is $999, it means all of those 4080s are automatically under that price. So the most expensive 4080 is probably worth like, I don't know, $700, $800 at most now. And that's a pretty big drop. It's not really that old of a GPU, but that shows you how it was never a good value proposition to begin with. And NVIDIA basically is punishing those early adopters for the 4080. That's a pretty big, hammer, I think, going from $1299 or $1199 to $999 and more performance. So that's the 4080 Super. Before, I said that the only way this was going to be interesting was if the price dropped aggressively, and I guess it has. I think $1,000 is a price that a lot of people will definitely buy it at. And then poor AMD with their 7900 XTX, which had a $999 MSRP, they have to drop that one immediately. There were some sales of that GPU going down to like in the 700 range, I think like 750 or 799. I don't even know if 799 is enough. They may have to drop it like, maybe at a 750 or even closer to 700. I think most people are going to look at a 4080 Super and they're going to see the 7900 XTX, even though that has more VRAM. You know how it goes, NVIDIA with the LSS, and it's going to be a little more popular. So AMD really needs some price cuts. Now, the surprises continue with the next GPU, which is the 4070 Ti Super. $799. That's the same price as the 4070 Ti, but there's a really big catch with this one. It has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Our biggest complaint with the 4070 Ti was that it only had 12 gigabytes of VRAM and 192 bit memory bus, which is really limiting at higher resolutions like 4K. Basically, it was an $800 GPU that couldn't really do 4K as well as it should. Now, at $799 with 16 gigabytes of VRAM, this 4070 Ti Super, it actually feels like a 4080 now. Remember how the 4070 Ti was supposed to be a 4080? Now, it feels like, a little bit less than the 4080 still, but 16 gigabytes of VRAM, the performance is going to be really close with the, old 4080. And now it makes sense. 4070 Ti Super and then the 4080 Super at $999 with a $200 price difference. You're getting the same amount of VRAM, but if you want some more performance, some more CUDA cores, you would head on over to the 4080 Super now for about $200. Now the NVIDIA product stack makes a lot more sense, and that shows you how much they were really gouging gamers because of all of maybe the cryptocurrency hype that happened a few years ago, increasing prices. That shows you how off NVIDIA's retail pricing really was. So now we're starting to get back down, not necessarily to normal, but these are still expensive GPUs, but at least it's better than the normal that we had before. So that's a pretty important distinction. So yeah, I think a lot of gamers will buy this 4070 Ti Super for $799. In fact, I think they'll probably buy it over the 7900 XTX, which is why that GPU needs a huge price drop. And the 7900 XT, that one's going to have to be probably the same price as like a 4070 for people to even consider it now. And then speaking about the 4070 Super, once again, it replaces the 4070 at $599. That price was already okay for the 4070. The 4070 was one of the maybe better price to performance GPUs of this generation. Now, you have a 47 Super with the same amount of VRAM, 12 gigabytes of VRAM, but that's okay in this price range. This is a 1440p GPU. It's not like the 4070 Ti, which, straddles 4K and 1440p nearly as much, and you can do 4K with a 4070 and 4070 Super, but I think 12 gigabytes of VRAM is acceptable for $599 and has a lot more CUDA cores than the previous 4070. So we're to assume the performance is going to be really good on this GPU. It's probably going to be not too far off the old 4070 Ti. For $599, I think that's going to be really an exceptional value. I think people are going to be happy that there's now a mid-range to high-end this type of GPU that actually doesn't cost over $1,000, and it's going to make a lot of sense. Now, once again, AMD has a lot of trouble here because people are going to forget the 7800 XT now. If spending $100 more means you get an NVIDIA 4070 Super with a lot more performance and DLSS and all that goodness, I think, once again, AMD has to be really aggressive with their pricing, or they have to release some other GPU in this price range to be competitive. So 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super, and the 4080 Super. The performance, for the most part, it's not going to be all that surprising. They're going to be a little bit better than the GPUs that came before it, and obviously a little bit more VRAM on the Ti Super. So that's going to be very, very interesting. The biggest factor here in this refresh is that NVIDIA has reorganized the pricing. That's a really big deal. They could have very well have gone more expensive with this 4080 Super. They could have just pinned it at $1199. But that shows you that they're trying to decrease the pricing. The 4090 still way out in the stratosphere. We can kind of forget about that one for now because AI has really taken that GPU over. So the pricing and availability has really been affected. Everything else is still fair game for gamers. So very interesting to see. Think it's it's a big deal that they left it at the same price. They could have made every single one of these GPUs at least $100 more expensive. I thought it was going to be more expensive. I thought they were going to be at least $100 more because listen, it's a Super and NVIDIA is known to want to raise prices. So keeping it the same, and in the case of the 4080 Super, reducing that price, definitely very impressive. That changes things a lot, and I think people are going to start paying a lot more attention to these GPUs now that they seem more reasonable. Still expensive, but it's more reasonable than it was before, and I'm sure AMD is really having a little panic attack now because their entire product stack just got really messed up. They're going to have to lower prices. And obviously, the GPU that you have now probably did lose a lot of value too. Your 4070, your 4070 Ti, they're all going to be worth a lot less because there's newer and better, and this time, finally, reasonably cheaper. If these were really expensive, it wouldn't affect the pricing as much of the current things. But since these are priced what we can consider to be fairly aggressive on NVIDIA's part, judging by how they've been pricing GPUs for the last few years, I think it definitely will shake up the market. Let me know what you guys think down below. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.